Okay, one of the reasons I started this YouTube channel was because you, as a runner, you type into Google what you're looking for, you'll search for it, and 1,000 very different answers will come up. And so I wanted to make a channel that was more dedicated to real life scenarios and situations that people are in as runners, as recreational runners who have a full-time job and are trying to get the best out of their body. And often what I'll see as I'm kind of doing these videos, I'll see great comments. And I saw a brilliant comment from Trey, which had highlighted like where he'd been in the past, what he'd been doing, which was powerlifting, how he'd got into running. He'd done a couple of marathons, they'd gone great, he'd hit a personal best, and you kind of get into the thinking that it's all upwards from there. And the progress is gonna be simple, and you've cracked it, and you know what to do, you know what a marathon feels like, and it's not always like that. And this example is perfect. So I'll put this up on the screen. So Trey has been running since 2017. And he's transitioned from powerlifting. So he's a big guy, and you know the different body types, the ectomorph, mesomorph, which is probably sort of a mixture of my body type, athletic but also kind of quite skinny. He's probably an endomorph, mesomorph, so athletic but stronger and bigger muscle, more muscle, and probably more fat stores as well. So it's not as easy for him to just become a good runner. He really needs to work at it. So the progressions in his marathon times. 2017, Myrtle Beach, 4 hours and 36 minutes. That was in March. In the November, he ran in Charlotte the same year and ran 4 hours 14, which is a massive 22-minute progress. So he's probably feeling great. 8 months later, and you're running a massive PB like that. But it's to be expected when you first get into marathon running. And then the next year, he's done the same Myrtle Beach Marathon in March in 2019 and ran his fastest marathon to date, which is 4 hours and 1 minute, just missing a sub 4. So then he's got that, obviously got into the COVID years, 2020, 2021, and eventually he's run the next Myrtle Beach Marathon in March of 2022, and he feels like he's gone backwards in 4 hours 16. So he's run 15 minutes slower than he's ran before. And then he's telling me a little bit about his training, a little bit about his long runs, what should he do? He feels like he's plateaued. And he's seeking basically improvement tips on how to move forward. Should he consider moving on, focusing shorter distances, building speed in a half marathon, that kind of thing. And also he mentions that he's still weight training, and he'll do things like 5x5 bench pressing and squats weekly. So I look at all that, and you have to take a holistic view. And it's a comment on YouTube, and therefore you've just seen a glimpse of what the person's actually done. And those figures, as you've mentioned on his more recent Myrtle Beach marathons, it's a hot and humid day. And so you're expecting maybe a 5%, 10% slower difference anyway. And so you're not comparing apples with apples. And it's really easy to get sucked into this mentality in the marathon, because every single time you're running 26.2 miles, you think that the conditions are completely the same. It might be rainy on one day and really great for running. It might be hot and humid on the next day. It might be super windy in one direction for you, and then you gain it on the other side, but it's not really like managing your energy over a marathon if the conditions are quite similar all the way around. So there's lots of factors to play at. What I'd say to somebody like Trey is that you've not plateaued. You've only just started running in 2017. You've hit your personal best in 2019, and that's brilliant. And you've got so much more to go in the marathon. You know how to run the distance. You've got the work ethic. You've come from a sports background, powerlifting. You know what it's like to fail. You know what it's like to really dig in when it gets tough and really like persevere. So it's just transferring those skills. And as I said before, his body is probably not ideal for marathon running, but how far can he go? I'd say at this point, when you're running sort of 4 hours and 1 minute, 6, 7 years ago, you've got the potential to run easily an hour quicker. And it's just about, okay, what he's doing right now is kind of like, okay, he's analyzing his game, he's looking under the bonnet, and so he's already kind of thinking, should I be running shorter distances? And what I'd absolutely say is yes to that. So a lot of us jump into the marathon too quickly because it's a marathon and people in the office are getting involved, and you know, to be a runner means that you need to be able to run a marathon. It's absolutely not the case. And to be a distance runner and to get involved in distance running and the training and the structure and the discipline and the work ethic is so much more than the marathon. So I'd say that if you can be running a 5K and you can improve in your 5K time, and you can get used to running, let's say 4 minutes 30 per kilometer, 5 minutes per kilometer, which would be towards 3 hours and 30 minutes time for the marathon. So that's going to build a lot more speed, and you can use that speed then and move up into the 10K and see what that translates 5K time into a 10K time, and then again into half marathons. And the beauty about the 5K, the 10K and the half marathon is you can do them quite regularly. The marathon takes a lot out of your body, both the race itself and the total distance. So the total distance and the training schedule, the dedication it takes. So you've got 3 months to get ready for a marathon, you've got months before in order to get ready for that training schedule, and then you've got the race itself. So physically it's demanding, and mentally, psychologically it's demanding as well, because it means kind of sacrificing other elements of your life, maybe family, friends, not drinking, kind of looking after your diet, not maybe working the hours that you feel you should be at work, that kind of thing. And it takes a lot of, I wouldn't say sacrifice, but it takes a lot of dedication. Whereas if you're running 5Ks, you can be running a 5K race pretty much every week, and I'd say every other week, so that you can really maximize your training and then make use of the training in the race. And exactly the same with 10Ks as well. You can run a flat out 10K every 2 weeks and you're completely fine. And that's the downside of a marathon and also ultra marathon running. When you get to a level with ultra marathon running, you've literally got to pick 4 races maximum per year that are going to be your A races, and that's what you're focused towards. And everything else, you've got to be disciplined to run at 90% or ideally 80%, so that you're using those races as long training runs, ready to hit your 4 A races as quickly as possible. And if you look at Eliud Kipchoge and the top marathon runners, they're going to do London in April and they're going to do Berlin in September, because those are the big money races, and those are well set out in the season, that they're in the spring and then the fall or the autumn. And they're usually nice conditions to run a fast marathon. And you've got some other marathons in the spring and in the fall, but essentially that's what you've got to go at. So if the top runners are running 2 marathons a year, and Trey here was running March, Myrtle Beach, and then November, you've got time in between when you can fully recover mentally and physically, so you can go again. But you can be entering a lot more 5Ks and 10Ks to increase that speed. So I'd say to Trey, what you need to do is to sort of like, okay, you've looked under the bonnet, you've kind of sought out the answers. So get yourself involved with running faster and book some sort of, if you've got access to local park runs or 5K runs, then get those in the diary and kind of make yourself accountable for learning to run quick. And what that's going to do to your body is not just feed that speed back into your marathon once you decide to do that again, but it's also going to get you moving better. It's going to get you running better, and it will probably send a message to you that if you're doing a race on that regular basis, you're probably not going to want to be hitting the weights as much, because that upper body weight, I feel it myself, if I just hit the gym a little bit on the upper body, you don't really want to carry in that upper body, because you'll realize that every little bit of muscle that you're carrying, extra muscle that you're carrying, means slower time. And that might not be a problem for you. You might want to be a big, strong guy that's running as quick as he can for the 5K, 10K, and then marathon. There's no problem at all with that. So it's just what you want to get out of this. But the 5Ks, the 10Ks, the half marathons are really going to benefit you in terms of getting to a point where you can do them more often. And then once you get to a point, and I'd say set yourself a lofty goal, like a 3-hour 30 marathon. And you might think, whoa, it's crazy, it's 30 minutes faster than I've ever run, it's 45 minutes than I've run my most recent marathon. It's not the case. As a percentage, it's not that great. And if you start to look at it, okay, what do I need to get my 5K time to in order for that to start to be comfortable? If you work on like 5 minutes per, or 8-minute miles, I think you mentioned. If you're working on that pace, and then you're working on a lot faster, so you can get towards 6-minute, 30 miles, 7-minute miles for the 5K, and then the 10K, and then the half marathon, and you make that step up. And that's quite a big step to go from 10K to half marathon. Although it's a very similar energy system and a very similar sort of dynamic to the race, if you nail that half marathon and you're able to kind of hit towards 7 minutes, 7 minutes 15, it's only a case of training to do that again and to run a full marathon in 7 minutes to 7 minutes 15, 7 minutes 30 perhaps. And that's a big difference. That's a huge difference from where you are now to where you want to be. So that's what I'd say. I'd say insert some more speed. Tempo runs, yeah, always good, but you only want to be doing 2 key sessions per week. And we talk a lot about that a lot on the channel, especially if you're running and it's part of your fitness regime. So maybe you've got some time on the bike, you've got some time in the gym. If you're running sort of 4, 5, 6 times a week, you only really want to be running two key sessions. And one of those is going to be focused on your endurance. You usually say put that in on Sunday. One of them is going to be focused on your interval, your speed endurance. And obviously for the training towards the 5K and 10K is going to be a little bit shorter in intervals, so that you can really build that speed and then run your fastest time. And the fastest time you possibly can for 15 to 20 minutes will be great for you, because that's going to feed in nicely to the 10K, as I said, nicely to the half marathon. And then all of a sudden that opens up a lot of doors as to what your belief system really, really imagines that it can achieve on race day for the marathon. So yeah, good luck, Trey, and thanks a lot for commenting. It's awesome to see these long comments. I'm reading through them and I'm actually getting really super excited as I'm reading them, because I remember those days when you're new to it, you think you're doing something right, you pluck something off the internet, you're following a schedule, you're moving forward, then all of a sudden you think you've plateaued, and that can be quite, there can be negative feelings associated with that, but it's absolutely not the case. You're not plateaued, plenty of places to go. It's just about blasting through that, and I think speed is the key for it. So good luck. If you have any further comments, let me know in the comments below.